Today's podcast is brought to you by Behind the Tech with Kevin Scott. Links on all your favorite major podcast platforms. Paul, I'm going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Ready? This is the biggest news to come out of Microsoft.
Is it the Halo 3 map?
Nope.
Honestly, that's
better than that.
Okay.
Better than Sun Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Better than Windows 10X.
Okay.
Better than Surface Neo.
Okay. Thank you for level setting it.
The OneDrive sync client is going from 32-bit to 64-bit. That's the news. It's a big deal.
What is that?
It means the
More
app
bits.
can access more RAM if needed.
Oh, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There you go.
And this is obviously on Windows.
Yeah, just for Windows now.
Yeah. Well, it's been 64-bit on the Mac, right? It
Yeah.
has to be. I guess mobile too, when you think about it. I think those are all 64-bit.
Yeah, I don't know about... I guess Android is. I don't know Android as well as I know iOS. I know iOS forced it a while ago.
Right.
So, there you go.
When is this happening?
You can download the preview today if you want. The post isn't up on Petri, so if you're going to look for it, you're not going to find it, but that's where it'll be by the time this podcast goes up.
I believe Android is 64-bit. Oh.
I thought it was. Like, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is possible. There are still low-end processors that are 32-bit. Like, I guess it still technically supports both, but if you have a modern processor, it's 64-bit.
I was just more surprised that the OneDrive Sync app wasn't 64-bit. I just kind of would have assumed it would have.
Yeah,
done.
like a desktop process. Why wouldn't it be 64-bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
Where was this information? Where did you find this?
It'll be up on, it's not there yet. It'll be there again soon. If you go to m365log.com, it'll be part of there. It's appeared in the message center for Office 365 or Microsoft 365, whatever it's called today.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there you go. Big deal. Big deal.
Yeah. Excuse me. A little collar issue here. Better than a collar issue. Am I right? Okay.
Maybe.
Probably.
The other big news that is just groundbreaking is a snipping tool in Paint in the store.
Yeah. A lot actually. So Microsoft has a really bad habit of writing really crappy blog posts that don't make any sense. So, and also of not reaching the audience that needs to know this information, right? So there's a Windows Insider build that came out yesterday. Not a lot going on there per se, but as part of that announcement, they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're moving Paint and Snipping Tool into the store." We had heard about Paint, but there was this other little thing, and like actually, it's not a big deal, but it's like one of those things. It's like a goofy relic of the past. Like if you scroll through your Start menu apps list, right, there are folders, right, and like poorly written applications. Like I have to install this system component for the Markdown editor that I use. It creates a folder that has a bunch of icons in it, all of which are freaking useless. And it's like, it's kind of weird because from the Start menu, I can't like right click on it and say delete because it's all it is shortcuts. Who cares? Anyway, back from literally dating back to the days of the original Start menu in Windows 95, when you could kind of mouse through it and menus would open, kind of cascade off the side. We still have these folders, and the folders that are created by Windows. And I'm looking at it now just to remind myself of what's there. There's like Windows accessories, Windows administrative tools, Windows system. What's Windows system? I don't know. I'm not even sure where that dates back to. That's funny. That must be a fairly recent addition. Anyway, and they have things, legacy tools like, File Explorer for some reason is buried in there. It should be out in the front of the Start menu, command prompt, control panel, blah, 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 whatever. So Microsoft is actually going to consolidate those into a single folder, and then they're going to promote. Oh, and it's again just horrible writing, so you don't actually know what he's talking about. But the description leads me to believe that when you select this link, like it won't be a real folder, it'll be a link, and it will open an Explorer window File Explorer window that has all the shortcuts in it instead of doing the menu inside the file menu, the start menu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's what it's doing because, again, horribly written. But the File Explorer icon is going to be moved out to the top level of the start menu, which, by the way, is where Paint and Notepad, and I guess Snipping Tool might already be there. I'd have to go look that one up. But snipping sketches there, so that's being replaced by Snipping Tool. But anyway, I think they might be getting rid of these folders. I think that might be. They didn't say this because, again, why be clear? But that's what it sounds like. So is that a big deal? It's a big deal in the sense that OneDrive going 64-bit is a big deal. I mean, it's it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you hear that and you're like, oh, yeah, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they just do this before? I don't know.
Well, you got to remember, too, Windows just kind of waffled around for about 2 years or so, maybe.
Maybe. So as I said that, I was thinking exactly that they probably didn't know what they were doing exactly with the start menu or anything else. And yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. Indeed. There was something else on the Windows world, I thought. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah, Microsoft. I read your headline and I laughed. It's like Microsoft celebrates first year of consumer 365. I was like, hey.
Well, right. So unfortunately, that headline might cause people not to read it. So I didn't know how to say this because what they really did was they provided it was actually over a year ago. I think they said almost a year ago. It was in March last year, whatever. We announced the Microsoft 365 consumer SKUs and a bunch of new features. And, here's some of what we accomplished over the past year. So, okay. A lot of it is a recap of things that were already announced and have already shipped. One of which, by the way, shipped literally last March. Like I think it was the Microsoft Editor. And so you're like, oh, well, this is just, what is this? Like, why would I even write about this? All they're doing is recapping what they already did. But if you pay attention, there are actually maybe 3, even 4 things in there where it's either a brand new feature or it's something that was announced and hadn't been released, or was announced, it was only in preview, or was announced and maybe it was only in certain places and now it's in more, or they've added some features to it, that kind of thing. So it's actually worth going through. I took the time to link to every instance where I'd already written about the topic, So the ones that I don't link to something are the ones you might want to look at, unless you're not up on this stuff at all. That's just a little tip there, because there's some good info in there.
There's also some good info in Behind the Tech with Kevin Scott. This week we are highlighting the Tom Daniels interview, the neuroscientist and bioengineer. It's a really smart conversation. It's a good podcast. It's Behind the Tech with Kevin Scott, who is the Chief Technology Officer over at Microsoft. Make sure to give that a listen. Give it a subscribe. You'll find links in the YouTubes, on the Threats, and all. In a
weird coincidence, because I actually subscribe to this podcast. Yeah. I think I mentioned I don't listen to every single episode because a lot of this stuff is just outside the scope of my interest or whatever, But the thing that caused me to subscribe to it, and it for some reason it was promoted in one of my feeds yesterday, episode 1 of that podcast, which is probably now 2 years old or whatever, is an interview with Anders Heidelberg, and it is. The guy who created Turbo Pascal, Delphi, went to Microsoft, did .NET, C#, TypeScript. Freaking genius. He's awesome. It is an awesome conversation. And literally, not only do I care about the topic and the guy, but it's the Kevin Scott has a history with a lot of these products. And there was a lot of just good insider info in it. And literally, that is the reason I subscribed. And I've listened to several episodes other than that one, obviously. But for some reason, like we've been promoting this podcast here, whatever, that's fine. But it like, I don't know, this is like Google knows everything about my life or something, but it literally popped up in my feed yesterday. Episode 1.
They hear you talking about it.
Yeah. He's in the house.
Kevin just pops out from like behind you. He's like, hey.
With a microphone.
Yeah. Also somewhat interesting because what they didn't announce is Apple has extended the Find My, which if you've used an iPhone, it's how you can find your other Apple devices, to third parties. Many people were expecting them to announce AirTags along with this sort of device that nobody has never been officially announced. It wasn't an official video that they then pulled, and now it just doesn't show up anywhere.
It's clearly happening, right? God knows what it's waiting on. That too, there's a little bit of interesting additional info in there, in the Apple announcement, and then in the thing I wrote about, which is, I believe that AirTags uses a technology called ultra wideband.
Yeah, UWB, I think is the short.
Yeah, and Apple also released draft specifications for third parties that wish to take advantage of this technology, which is found in certain U1 equipped Apple devices. U1 is the Apple chipset. They have different ranges. And I don't know which of those are. I mean, I assume there are certain recent MacBook type products that have it, possibly iPads, iPad Pros or whatever. But AirTags will almost certainly have this, right? And maybe that's the secret behind why is this taking so long. They needed to make sure that third parties could support this product line, right?
Yeah.
Before it was released, maybe. Plus, they released, they expand Find My, and it's kind of like a way to offset the criticism of, oh my God, you're taking out yet another partner.
Yeah.
By replicating what they do and just offering it directly.
And
it's like, yeah, but look, we expanded this other thing that used to be only us, and now it's for everybody. See, we do both things. We're fun. Yeah.
We're fun. That's not what I thought you were. It's not where I thought that was headed.
We're not evil. We don't have a monopoly anywhere. Oh, sorry. That was my Tim Cook laugh. Because, that's how he laughs.
I'll take your word for it. Every time I hear Tim Cook, all I think of him is on stage with U2 trying to do the music thing.
Oh, my God.
It was one of the best.
Yes.
That is their tweet choir moment.
Every time I see him, he reminds me of my adopted grandmother, who is now over 90 years old and is from Newfoundland and has literally weathered an existence that most of us today, will never understand or appreciate. And she looks exactly like Tim Cook. And I it just always, every time I see this guy, I think Newfoundland grandmother. Yep, I know. Little sad.
Did not think we were going there.
No one could have seen that one coming. I know, it's great.
Not even close.
Every time I see his face, that's who he reminds me of.
Well,
Except that this woman is like 4'8", and he's got to be like 6 feet tall or whatever. She's shriveling, Brad. She's old. She's not gonna die. She's just gonna peek out of existence.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Behind the Tech with Kevin Scott. You can find links on all the major podcast platforms, and we'll be back tomorrow as long as Paul doesn't do whatever he's doing.
I'm still recovering from my vaccination.